Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to choose the right breed for your backyard farming setup. The truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all answer to this sort of situation. It's going to depend on the goals that you have, the space you have available, and how you want to integrate chickens into your food production systems. I'm going to go into specifics on different breed types, but before we get into that, we need to think about the goals that you have for why you want to have chickens in your backyard in the first place. Different people have different goals, so you need to think about what it is you're wanting out of your chicken flock. That might be just for eggs. It might be for assistance in your food production systems, because chickens are fantastic at helping out with garden-related tasks. It might be to have a sustainable source of meat that you can produce in your own backyard, or it might be to allow experiences for your children or your grandchildren to experience looking after animals and livestock in a safe situation. Another reason that people have chickens are to help them with managing food wastes, because chickens are great at making any garden and kitchen scraps disappear and for making fantastic compost. So there are lots of different reasons that people want to have chickens, and the reasons will change which breed are going to be the right fit for you. Once you've decided on your primary goals, you need to think about what actual space that you have for keeping chickens, because you might decide that you want big chickens, but you only have a small space. So you need to think about how much space you can dedicate to your coop and your run, whether you can allow for some free ranging time for your flock. And it's also really important to think about what kind of fencing your property has, the boundary fencing, because chickens are going to escape from their run at some point. It's going to happen. In fact, while I'm sitting here shooting this video, I just watched one of my roosters go for a wander down the driveway. So he got out of his run. It's going to happen. So if you do not have good, tall, high boundary fences, you might not want to pick a breed that is excellent at getting over fences. You might want to stick with something that is quite large and likes to stay on the ground, or quite small and can't fly very well. So these are all things to keep in mind. The other thing to consider is your climate. You need to think about how hot or cold it gets where you live, because some breeds cope with either the heat or the cold better than others. For example, breeds that have a large single comb like leghorns can be more susceptible to frostbite because they have so much of that comb out exposed to the air. So keep in mind your climate when you're making decisions about what breed will be right for you. The last thing to touch on before we dive into breed specifics is how different breeds live together in harmony or not. So a lot of people like to have a whole range of different breeds, particularly if you can't have all that many chickens. It's nice to have sort of one of each, as many breeds as you can manage. But you do need to take into account how those breeds get along together and try to match temperaments as well as you can. For example, commercial hybrid chickens like the Isa Browns can often be quite aggressive to other breeds. They can be quite aggressive to each other as well, but they are a very active chicken that can be quite mean to a more chill breed of chicken. So that is something to keep in mind. Not all breeds will be able to get along together well. The first breed class I'm going to talk about are the bantams. A bantam chicken is a small chicken. They are quite small in some cases, and that makes them perfect for backyards where you don't have very much space. But not all bantams are the same. So something like a silky or a Cochin Pekin bantam, they can be really great for beginners. They can't fly very well at all. They're not very destructive because they don't have the power behind them to destroy your lawn or rip all the plants out of your garden. So they can be a really good choice for when you don't have a lot of space, or you might not have really high fences, or you're new to keeping chickens. They're a very easy chicken to get started with. I've acquired a very small silky cross bantam who's hanging out with my flock. I didn't choose to get her, she just kind of showed up one day, but she's very chill and cruisy, and I can attest to the fact that she can't fly very well. So bantams can be a great choice. There are other bantam breeds that are perhaps not the best fit for beginners or small backyards. These are things like the game bantams, sea brights, and even some of the small versions of standard breeds. They can often be quite flighty, they can often fly very well, and they're going to need a fully enclosed run to ensure that they cannot escape. And if you don't have tall boundary fences, they are possibly going to go on some adventures on their own. So keep in mind your level of experience and the kind of fencing and space you have available to you when you're thinking about getting a bantam that's a little bit more of a step up from a silky or a Cochin bantam. But bantams are lovely. They don't lay very many eggs, so if your goal is egg production, they might not be a good fit, but they're a great way to start. They also go broody a lot, so you could get hatching eggs to raise your next generation of backyard chickens by starting with a few bantams to get used to having chickens. Next up, we have the light breeds of chickens. So these are breeds like Leghorns, Minorcas, Andalusians, Hamburgs, Campines. They are a lighter bodied chicken. They tend to be quite flighty, which means that if you're going to have to keep your chickens in confinement in smaller runs, they might not be the best choice. Often in a free range situation, these breeds of chickens are quite happy and content, but when they feel confined, they can often get quite nervous and quite sort of scattered and be a bit harder to manage. So if you have a small space without a lot of room for your chickens to be able to free range, or if you're concerned that your fencing is not high enough, they might not be the best choice for you in your situation. Now, the light breeds of chickens are fantastic. They tend to have a really good food to egg conversion, so you don't have to feed them as much as like a heavier breed of chicken to get the same number of eggs. But on the flip side of that, they don't make great table birds. So if you are hoping to raise chickens to also provide meat as well as eggs, there might not be the best choice. Now, they tend to be more aggressive than the dual-purpose heavier breeds. So if you're trying to mix a lot of breeds together and you've got some more chill breeds in the mix, they might not get along well with those more chill birds because they can be a little bit more aggressive, a bit meaner to birds that don't stand up for themselves quite as much. But of course, all chickens are individuals. So just because there are general things people say about a breed class doesn't mean that any particular chicken you have will represent the sort of breed characteristics. So your mileage may vary, but keep in mind that they tend to be flightier, more aggressive, and a lot harder to contain than the heavier breeds or the small bantams like the silkies or the Cochins. While we're talking about the light breeds, I'll talk about the commercial hybrid chickens because they are a light breed, but I didn't put them in that category. So they're sort of in a category on their own. Now, these are breeds like Isa Browns, or here in New Zealand, we call them brown shavers or highline browns. Now, these chickens have the best feed to egg ratio of any breed you can possibly get. They are true feats of breeding and sort of genetic engineering. They're not genetically engineered, but they've been bred so well to just be amazing at laying eggs. So if you're looking for egg laying machines, they are great. However, I don't recommend them for backyard flocks, mostly because they run into health issues quite quickly. Within 2 to 3 years, they often have quite nasty reproductive reproductive health issues, and they also really have a tendency to be aggressive to other breeds. So if you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to have different breeds together, they often are not a great choice. And chicken math is a thing. Just because you get started with just a couple of chickens doesn't mean that's what's going to happen moving forward. The commercial hybrids also need to have a very high quality feed to support their egg production. They're going to keep laying eggs even if they're not getting optimal nutrition, and that can really impact their health. So they pretty much have to have commercial bagged feed at a high quality, which makes them less able to manage your food scrap waste management system, because they do have to have pretty precise nutrition to support that massive egg laying capacity. I personally don't recommend the commercial hybrids for backyard flocks. Now we've made it to the dual purpose class, the medium and heavy breeds, and these are my favorites. So I have saved what is, in my opinion, the best for last. Now these breeds are things like Barred Rocks, Sussex, Astrolabe, Rhode Island Reds, New Hampshire Reds, Wyandottes, Barnvaldes, Orpingtons, Brahmas, Marans, pretty much every breed that isn't in the classes that we've previously talked about. These breeds tend to be pretty chill, easygoing chickens, which makes them really beginner friendly. Generally, once they have grown to maturity, they will be able to stay behind about 4-foot fences, maybe 5 foot, but if the fence is a fence that they can't land on top of, then 4-foot fences are probably going to be fine because they are heavy. They don't really love having to get up off the ground in a hurry. They are moderate egg layers, which means they lay more than the bantams, but they don't lay as well as the lighter breeds. But that means that you have a little bit more wiggle room in the diet that they eat because they're not super high production, so they can cope with eating a portion of their diet from food scraps or from forage, and they will be able to sustain their moderate egg laying production on that kind of diet. So that makes them a great fit for backyards where a portion of garden wastes and kitchen scraps will form part of their diet. They are heavy enough that they're really, really useful to help with garden-related tasks. They can really strip an area down and turn the soil over. But on the flip side of that, it makes them quite a destructive force. So if you're hoping to free-range them in your whole backyard, you do need to keep in mind that they will make quite a few holes and generally cause a bit of mayhem. But they are easy to contain if you need to contain them in a run, because again, they're not the best at flying and they tend to prefer to stay on the ground. Even though they are quite large chickens, they often do better in smaller confined situations than the lighter breeds or the flightier bantams do because they're chill. It doesn't bother them so much. They get along with each other pretty well and they're less likely to panic when the chicken keeper enters their run space. So from that perspective, they can be great if you don't have a huge amount of space, but do keep in mind that all chickens do need a certain amount of space to be happy, and if you're talking about a very small space, a bantam is probably a better choice for you. But they are chill and they will cope with a more confined existence than the lighter breeds will be able to cope with. And of course, their category is dual purpose, which means they are good for both laying eggs and for raising as table birds. So if you're looking for your own supply of meat from your backyard, a dual purpose breed is the way to go. And if you're not wanting to eat your own chickens, because that can be quite a leap, I do understand that. But if you're wanting to breed your own chickens, and dual purpose are a great way to be able to sustain your own flock because they tend to go broody and they make great mothers. But then you're going to have surplus roosters. And if you're wanting to find places for those roosters to go, there are people who will be willing to come and collect your roosters for their own table, which is great. And they're going to be willing to come and do that for a dual purpose breed where they might not be as interested in coming to pick up a rooster if they're a lighter breed or a bantam. Now, you may have noticed that this video sort of turned into a sales pitch for dual-purpose heritage breed chickens, and that's kind of true. I personally think that they're really awesome and they're my favorites. But there are lots and lots of different breeds of chickens that are perfect for different situations, and your situation might better fit a bantam if you don't have a lot of space, or you're looking for a chicken that can't wreak too much havoc in your environment, or if you really want to have great egg production, the lighter breeds are a great fit for that goal. But for most people, dual-purpose heritage breed chickens are a great place to start, and they're chill and easy and very beginner-friendly. I personally think Barred Rocks are an absolutely fantastic breed to get started with. It's the breed that I started with too, and they've really been great for my situation here. I think they're a great jumping in point for people getting started with chickens. Now, there are so many different breeds and different breeds that are available in different countries and not others, and I can't dive into every single specific here in this video, or it would be 3 hours long. So I've written a guide to summarize and expand the information in this video about how to pick the best breed for your backyard flock, and you can check out that article by clicking on the link in the description.